Hi friends, welcome to episode 109. This is the first weekend of December and weather report chucking down with rain out there, so it's really damp in here. Last week I left some metal panels that I'd sprayed up the back of the shed. Unfortunately, I popped up here in a week to have a look, see how they'd dried off. And it must have got really damp in here, so I'm going to have to put another coat of paint over that. That's the conductor's locker cover thing. So that's not a big problem because I've got to put another coat underneath the stairs. Last week, as you notice, I got my hair sprayed red. Yeah, just one of those things, unfortunately. But this weekend, hopefully, I won't go back to brown like when I was very young. Anyway, this weekend, yeah, more painting. I hope to put the final coat of paint on around that emergency exit window upstairs. And we're probably going to get a chance to put some bits back on the bus. What bits? I haven't a clue. But I'll tell you in this bit with a picture of the field outside. So that'll be this bit then. First of all, you might notice I've got my new microphone working, so I'm going to do a few more bits to camera, which makes getting these out really quick now. Secondly, I did manage to get some work done. We managed to put some paint on the bus. We did some work on the frame. We'd found a fracture. I'd found a fracture on it, and a colleague of mine from work came up with all his welding equipment and very kindly did some welding on the bus for me. So thank you very much to Martin for that. We'll do that later on. Anyway, so this edition, yeah, it should be a little bit interesting, I hope. So let's kick off then with the first bit. Right, I know it looks like I'm starting up too many projects on this, but as you will be aware, with winter closing in, well, it's actually, apart from pouring down with rain, it's actually quite nice and mild down at the barn. But anyway, with winter closing in, I want to use the interior as a kind of pseudo workshop and get started on some of the stuff inside. We've still got those ceiling panels, which we've got to do at some point. I mean, my brother came down, it was a year ago, unbelievably, last December. He came down and helped me to make up the panels for the roof. Well, he did most of the making up the panels. I will simply just sprayed them. And I want to put one more coat on, but the weather's gone horrid now. I had planned to do it in September. And then they can go into the bus, but they're sitting on the side of my RML 2428. Yeah, they're ready to go in, apart from that final coat. But anyway, back to this little thing. I want to get this conduit in, and what's holding me up is getting this back into the brown, which I need to do, so like a couple of coats of brown. So I put one coat of brown on the other day. It was just one simple, very thin coat, and then I wanted to do another coat this weekend, and so I did that. Then I've got to let it harden off, and I'll put another coat on this coming weekend, and then hopefully that'll be it. This is a horrid area to work in. It's very difficult to light it. It's like basically spraying in a coal cellar with no light. You really have to guess where you are. So I will be pleased when I can tick this one off, but we're very close to ticking it off. You might notice where I've started to spray downwards as well. There's no, it saves masking it up. I could mask it all up and just, you can see the masking on the right hand side and left hand side, can't you? In shot, that's just to protect it the paint going everywhere. Although it doesn't actually. If you have a look at that sheet, it's not covered in brown paint, is it? So anyway, that is that little area. So we're probably going to come back to that in a short while, but I just want to show you this minor disaster. This is the little flap that goes over the conductor's locker area, just to the right hand side of that previous shot. I sprayed these on last weekend on Sunday, and I was really fairly happy with them. But bearing in mind it's cold, it's damp, and I went up there on Wednesday and I was a little bit cheesed off to see that condensation had dripped from the top of the barn and had landed on my drying panel, so there was all watermarks all over it. So I had to rub it down again, and that was sprayed as well. So this is the shot of it with the watermarks all over it. But it's a bit of a shame, but it's just the perils of winter, I suppose. Right, this is a case of X marks the spot. This is part of the structure just ahead of the offside wheel arch. And I noticed when I went to put some panels back on, I was all sort of lining them up, that this part of the body had become live. Basically, this structure going upwards goes all the way up to the top of the bus. And the structure that comes from the right hand side and terminates just underneath my finger runs under the floor of the bus, and basically the two should be joined, and in this case they weren't. And as you can see there's a fracture, as my finger is helpfully pointing out. So a good friend of mine from work, one of my colleagues, Martin, doesn't mind doing a little bit of welding, so I asked him if he would kindly pop up to the barn on Saturday and weld this up for me. It wasn't going to be easy, but nonetheless he did do it, and there was a couple of other little jobs which I'll come to in a minute which needed welding, so I thought might as well do all of it at once. So anyway, here's Martin getting his stuff ready for welding. The problem Martin had was trying to get an earth on the body, so I had to go around with the angle grinder to try and grind off some of the paint that was on the frame, and we still sort of struggled, but here he is trying to get an earth, but yeah, not having a huge amount of success, unfortunately. Right, I could see Martin was getting a little bit frustrated not managing to get an earth on the bus. The purpose of the earth, by the way, is one end of this, is it anode? I don't know what you want to call it, but one end of the welding tool is a positive power supply. Of course, it needs a negative to go back, otherwise you don't get a circuit. So that's basically what you need. But unfortunately, we struggled. So I thought, well, I'll tell you what, I'll give Martin this. This was a bit of metal that I made up myself. I bought some angle iron and then I took it into work and folded it round to where I wanted it and drilled a hole in it, which was in the place where I thought was the right spot, but I didn't get that right. But nonetheless, where we folded it over, I wanted to weld in that gap so that it gave it a little bit more strength. Not that I think it'd actually go anywhere, quite frankly. So, yeah, this is it being welded together. You can also see in the corner of the shot, that's the pillar that's got the fracture. But we'll come back to that later on, because we do need to knock that off. That's the main purpose of this visit. Right, so eventually we got going, and this is the main event. This is Martin welding up the bottom of that pillar. I think Brian Watkinson may have called them feet. I'm not entirely sure, but there's probably a technical term for them. But now that's done, I wanted Martin to turn to this. Now this was the wheel arch, or part of the wheel arch, that had rotted out years ago. There was absolutely nothing there. So I did my best 30 odd years ago by making that little back plate that you see there. And it basically got left. Obviously, as you well know, there was that moratoria. So I've had to come back to it because I really do need to finish it off. So that little bit of wood on the right-hand side at the bottom there was manufactured. I'll run you through this in a minute anyway. But what I need to do is strengthen it up. So I bought some angle iron online, thanks to Amazon. Surprising what you get on Amazon, isn't it? And I had to make that bracket that you saw just now, and that bracket will go across the bottom of that sort of piece of metal that I put in there. So anyway, here it is with Martin welding up the top of that bracket, because I need that to be done first. So while Martin gets on with welding the bracket onto the structure of the bus, this insert picture is the near side of the bus. And what you might notice is you can see there's a little bit of metal that runs across at about a foot off the bottom of the vehicle. And that's where Martin's welding onto the frame currently on the other side. But at the bottom there, you can just about see there's another piece of metal. And what that does is it's suspended slightly above the end of the bus. And then there's a bit of wood that's clamped onto it. So I've got that wood, I've made that, I've cut that to size. So the bracket that you saw him welding up earlier on is the one that's going to go in the bottom there, and that's the one where I got the damn hole in the wrong place. But there was going to be another problem on that near side wheel arch. You'll notice that the wood that runs round just to the top there is all rotted out, and I'm going to have to replace that. That's why it's not been tidied up. So there we are. So that's the near side of the bus. Right, so let's go back to the off side of the bus and my new microphone. Right, this is one of the free rotted out wheel arches. I've got the near side on the other side and this side still to do. The metalwork is away with my friend Alan, who's going to refabricate that for me, so thanks to Alan. This is one I can do quite easily myself. This should look like the one on the other side of the bus, but sadly all of it had rotted away when I took it out in the 1990s, and I had no reference really with this. And of course when I took the panel off the other side, I could then see how it was constructed. So there's a block of wood in the bottom here, like that, and then there's a little bar that goes across the top which supports that bit of wood. So yesterday we welded this up. I had measured it up and drilled a little hole in there for a bolt. Unfortunately, this is the wrong place. Never mind. So, and there's a secondary problem with it as well. Where the bolt goes through here, I've got the battery crate. I'll put that in. So I'm going to have to jack the battery crate up so I can get the bolt through here, because it comes through just on this side. So we've got no clearance to get it in. And what I want to do is put the top of the bolt through this way and then apply the nut onto this side so it looks much neater. That's the plan. I'm going to have to secure this onto the little bit of angle iron we put there. This is not the original angle iron, obviously. This is just stuff you buy at a sort of normal ironmonger's really. But I popped some silver paint on it, and yeah, it don't look too bad. I'm going to finish this bit of wood off. I'm going to put some wood preserver on there, because obviously it's going to get pretty saturated with water if it goes out in the rain. So some wood preserver, then some of the grey. Yesterday I rubbed this down a little bit. It had a few original sort of nails or screws that were sticking out, so I run the DA over it with a very aggressive disc, and it's taken off most of that. This little black stuff you see there is what remains of the original mastic that they put round the frame to stop the water coming through into the saloon of the bus. I'm going to sort of replicate that with sort of more modern mastic. But there we are. And I had to make this bit as well. This bit of wood is new, because again, all that fell out. What I have done is, originally that bit of wood would have stopped about there, but I've extended it up to here so I can screw through these two bits of wood, and that gives it a little bit more rigidity. Once this is in, it'll have a hell of a lot of rigidity. So yeah, there we are. So not a bad little job in progress really. Be pleased with that when it's finished. I'm pleased with the whole thing when it's finished, but quite when? Yeah, that's the question, isn't it? Right, let's push on. Right, well that worked. Yesterday when Martin was here, we were welding on here and we were struggling to get a good negative. And when we did that, there was a big blue flash down there somewhere. I thought, oh Christ, I thought it was my electrics. But these were all disconnected. What it's done is, where we've tried to get a good negative on the body, which is very close to where he was welding, I suppose possibly the negative wasn't particularly good. So it's gone back through the body and back to the clamp that he had that was on the side of the bus. So that's probably what happened. But it blew a big chunk out of one of the bolts down the end there. So I might have to replace that. But there we are. So that's coming together. But I'm still going to have to remove this because that's too close to there. Right. There we go then. Right. While I undo all of these bolts that I put on a few months back, so never mind. Socials. Yesterday, Saturday, was a really busy day for friends popping in. First one to pop in was Kevin Forecast with his daughter Laura. Kevin brought with him gifts, which was very nice. Well, at least in the shape of 6 or 7 or 8 mince pies. Thank you very much, Kevin. And then Martin Rickwood from South London, from the Croydon area, popped in to say hello. I've known Martin for, well, all the time I've had this actually, or most of it. Years back in Orpington, when I kept this in Orpington, we were sitting on the bus upstairs having done some work on it. Don't think you do a lot when you buy a bus, when it's brand new, well, I'd say brand new, but you know, it's new to you. The first thing you do is start cleaning it. But yeah, I suppose we all have to start somewhere. Anyway, yeah, Martin popped in with a load of other enthusiasts. Sadly, Martin didn't take any pictures of this, but he was armed with lots of pictures of occasions when we took RM1069 out on various tours. We did a couple of them. We did one to Bedford and we did one to Southampton. So Martin came along with us on that. Now, when I met up with Martin and friends at Orpington, my original plan was to paint this red, because I really wanted a red RT. I didn't want a green one, certainly not one in this colour. So Martin and friends pointed out that this was never red. So ended up having to change my plans slightly, which is why it's staying in this colour. So there we are. So it's great to see Martin Rickwood, currently working for Arriva at Croydon Garage down in South London, if you don't know where that is. So yeah, great to see Martin, and it was great also to see Kevin Forecast, whose father was one of the grandees of here, I think, all those years back. So yeah, great to see those people. So it's a really social day on Saturday. See if I can take the weight up on this. That's good. That's got the weight on there. Last thing I want to do is take these bolts off, and then the whole thing falls down on the floor. Yeah, a bit of a sort of anti-preservation, wouldn't it? Trouble is I can't get I can't get the bolt. Can't get to the back of the bolt there. Okay. Right, so that was socials. Right, having mentioned the socials, we'll flick back to Saturday then. This is Mark's RM158 outside the barn. He wanted to wash off the underneath because he's got Tim Barrington coming down in the week to give it a little service. Mark's intention is next weekend, I think it's next weekend, they're going to do the RM159 bus route run from the Ace Cafe down to Streatham. So that's the plan. So he wants to get it all sort of tickety-poo before he takes it out. So hence the reason why it's outside my barn. And he needs to get it up on the ramps, and luckily at this point Kevin was still around to assist getting the ramps under the bus. Mark, put those other 2 blocks on there as well, mate, yeah? Kevin, if you just, yeah, those 2 small blocks, got a couple of blocks there, yeah? Yeah, so, yeah, on top, but do it about halfway so it's distributed, that's good, yeah. Right. Poor old Mark, there was barely enough space to get him under the bus. Well, we haven't got any proper Weemers. Weemers are the things that you stick a bus up in the air, and they really need them. But nonetheless, unfortunately, this is the only way we can do it, is to stick the bus on these blocks. So there's Mark, and he got absolutely filthy dirty. I don't know. So last week it was me getting covered in red paint, and this week it was Mark getting covered in oil and grease and everything. So when we came to do the chip shop run, Mark decided to stay back because he didn't want to embarrass himself down at the chip shop. But anyway, nonetheless, and the other guest that we had turn up, it's not a guest really, that's one of our regular correspondents, isn't it? It was Peter Veers. So Peter came down the chip shop with me because he was all nice and spick and span. So yeah, great. So there we are. So there are the socials. I call this the Bermuda Triangle. Everything you do, stuff falls on the floor and then you can't find it. I've just lost the nut that come out of there. Never mind, I've got more. So, and I'm sure it will turn up again when I put the broom in here. Always do the easiest one last, because that one's going to take a little bit, well, that's taking the weight of the battery crate. I've now got this jack just underneath to hold it in place so it doesn't fall down. I've still got the batteries in there. These are lightweight batteries. These are not the ones I'll use when I put it back into when I sort of start running it. I won't. Right, so all the weight is now on that. Yeah, so I bought some cheap batteries for it. I bought for $10.69 the RM. It's at the back of the garage. I bought some. Say you can't get, or you struggle to get, decent batteries like London Transport had in the 1960s and 70s. These ones have all got like round terminals like you've probably got on your car. But the London Transport batteries in them days had flat terminals with two little bolts that went through. That was what they were like. Unfortunately, you can't get them, but nonetheless, we managed to find someone that was selling them, brand new, obviously, and they were like £200 a battery, and there's 4 of them. So I spent £800, and they lasted 6 months. These I've had for a year, and they're only titchy little batteries, like little lorry batteries, but they have lasted the whole year. And I've put a little bit of charge in them the other day, but they've never struggled to start this bus up. So you know, people laugh at those that go out and buy these silly little batteries, and they're sort of like, oh well, they're not the high-powered, heavy-duty ones that you use in service. Well, no, you don't need it because you haven't got all the lights on. You're not using all that constant power drain. So these are probably perfectly okay in preservation, frankly. And not only that, if they do sort of foul, it's not a huge cost to replace them. Right, so now what I'm going to hope to do is to, I'll use my little bit here, jack this up. Now it's going up, let's see that. This is what you do when you can't find a handle for it. Come on, I need you to go up a bit more than that. There, bang. It is bolted at the back. We don't want to start jacking the bus. I think I might just have cleared that. Let's see what happens. Very kindly, this we did this. This was re-welded. It was all rotted out. I know it looks crap now. Look at all that dust on it. It's typical in here, isn't it? Yeah, this was repaired for us and all resprayed quite nicely. So this, although it looks scabby, this is actually refurbished, and they've done a bloody good job of it as well. It's much better than what it was before. It was all rotted out in the corners there. It's typical, unfortunately, of battery crates. So we cleared that. Let's put the drill bit in there and we'll see what happens. If it comes out and it's in a nice position, all I need to do now is just bolt that back up again. Let's have a look. Oh, it just fractionally clears it. I might have to take this up a bit more. But I don't want to say, if something goes bang, I don't want to, I think we might actually be jacking the bus. Are we jacking the bus? Yeah, something's going somewhere. Yeah. Don't want this to... Yeah, I think... Yeah, that's amazing, that, isn't it? Don't want to distort that. So, I think that'll do. Right, let's go and find some bolts, and I'll let you get on with the next bit. And the next bit is this side of the bus. This is the near side. You might remember I've taken it all out. I'm sure you've seen it in plenty of pictures, so it probably doesn't need any explanation. I have done all the windows, put all the glass back in the pans, put new rubber in, spent a small fortune getting the handles for the little windy bits chromed. And yeah, I've been hanging around. I really wanted to do this in a sort of a big bang, but I'm not going to have a big bang, should I say, really, should I? I probably would go as a big bang. But obviously I've got a delay on the wheel arch stuff. I've got a delay possibly still on those stress panels that still need to be made. It's dragging on forever. And I need to do some cove panels as well for it. So there's still quite a few little jobs to do before I can put the whole main stuff back in. But I've got some prep to do. And the prep is making sure, one, that the window pan fits correctly. And also I need to just check the alignment for the next little bit that I need to do. So here we go with the window pan. Right, what I'm doing is I want to put that copper flashing that goes all the way down here, but you've got to get it in the right spot. Let's see if that's sitting down. I'm beginning to wonder if there's an upside down or not an upside down. I'm going to measure that in a minute. I think I need to measure those two. It might be round the wrong way. What I'm going to do though is, while it's there, so I might find it is round the right way, make a mark. So I put this masking tape on here, just so I can get a line. It's easier to do it using a pen because it's got a thinner nib. Right. So they should all be the same. They should all come in at the same place. So let's take that back down again. So there's our line. Now we can't go down too far with that copper, because if we do, it will protrude on this panel. So it will come down, if you see what I mean. So you'll be able to see it from underneath the beading. So I'm probably going to have to take that copper, which is here. So I'm probably going to have to take that and let's have a look and see what that looks like width-wise. Oh, that's not bad. So if I lined it up with that, that should work, shouldn't it? There we go. I think that would work, actually. So just line it up on there. Yeah, excellent. Available online. Right, let's get on. So this was my first attempt at trying to put this copper strip on. You know, for all intents and purposes, it should be a really nice, simple task. Except that wood at the back is hardwood and it's really tough. So sadly, my first attempts didn't quite work out too well because I buckled all the nails. So let's see how we got round it. I should have done this all along, actually. I was trying to get that tape just to hold it taut while I went along putting those nails on. Right, the problem was, this is hardwood, so it's really tough. These little panel pins don't stand a chance, frankly. It's a bit like trying to bang a panel pin into a bit of steel. It's just really hard wood. So, the panel pins were buckling. Now, I've really need to put tension on this. So I'm going to use one of these. My brother gave me these, by the way, so thanks, Daryl. We get that like that. See, I was trying to use that tape earlier on. That probably doesn't look very good, does it? Let's try it the other way round. Then you can actually see me making a mess of this. There we go, let's try it that way round. Right, come on. So I'm trying to keep the tension on because I don't want it going baggy. If it goes baggy, I suppose it won't make much difference really, but I don't want it, I'd rather it be right. That wasn't a clever idea, was it, to try and turn this round? There you go, that's better. Right, have we got it? No, need a little bit more. Hold on a second. Take 2, that's better. Right, I'll get some panel pins in at this end. This stuff, it should go all the way along there. A full roll does half the bus, which isn't bad. I've got some spare as well. I've got some much bigger stuff, just in case I needed to use like a, I don't know, a heavier bit. I'm wondering whether I use some up the top there, but when I did this didn't have, when I took these panels off, it didn't have this here. It only had it here, didn't have it anywhere else. So, right, let's go and bang some panel pins in. I'm using this drill, this tiny little drill bit. It's really very tiny, but it works. Like that. Good. Does help if you put the hammer in an accessible place, doesn't it? Yeah, that's a bit baggy. Not happy with that. Needs to be a bit more. Yeah, damn. Only fractionally baggy. And the panel pin's bending as well. Well done. Come on. This panel pin's bending. Okay. What do I do? Right, so I'll go along there. Got to mind where I've got bolts, because they are, well, I don't know, about 3/4 of an inch from the edge. If you start trying to put the panel pin in, it catches that. Obviously the panel pin's not going to go any further. So, now the plan is, over the next couple of weeks, I want to start to put those windows back in. But obviously I've got to do this first. I've got a small amount of work to do on here. I can probably get the bottom bits of wood back in that. We might be able to get this section built up. But I'd rather, in all honesty, come in one weekend and do the whole lot, because I think that's the way of doing it. So, right, let's put some more panel pins in then. That's an absolute bargain. 88 pence. Amazing. Probably about 1985 I probably bought that, maybe. Right, Texas. I think they've gone, haven't they? They've become one of the DIY, was it Do It Hall or something other, maybe? Right. Good. We're getting there. This is an easy job, isn't it? Now I've worked out how I want to do it. How many of these little panel pins do we need to put in, though? That's the question. You know, shouldn't need to put too many in, frankly. Got one there. Might put another one here. Another one there. So what I've done is I've done what I've done with the beading. Is I've gone along, putting random screws in and getting it in the right place, and then going back again and putting more in. So that's the way I do it with the beading, because it works better that way. Otherwise it could end up baggy, which you don't want it baggy, do you? So, and the other thing you've probably seen me do with the beading in previous editions is I'll put a bit of string and I'll pull it down the back or the front of the bus, depending on which way I'm going with the beading. and that way I can do it on my own, but only got tension on the beading all the time, so it works. And hopefully this sound thing's working. It worked out a lot quicker for me when I was doing the last episode, because it saves me having to sit and do all the dialogue at home. I can actually do it up here while I'm working, which makes life so much easier. And this is not a bad kit. It's just I spent ages trying to work out how it worked. Right, how are we getting there? Look, this will be like Aldenham in here, isn't it? See, sort of. Brian will say there's nothing like Aldenham, Dean. We had everything was laid out at Aldenham. I'm sure it was. There's no doubt it was. I've seen the pictures, and it's just down the road from where I work. Sadly, Aldenham all gone now. Built as a railway depot on the Northern Line. Didn't get there. A nasty man with a moustache turned up and made a mess of everything. So, right. That one's not going to go play ball with me. That's talking about a nasty man with a moustache, isn't it? Right, so that is a wrap on episode 109. We're almost at the end of the year and time for me to do a sort of Christmas special. Really pleased to have the microphone now because it can legitimise me talking to myself in the barn. I was on my own on Sunday when I filmed most of this. So anyway, here we are, finishing off with that nice little strip that I put on. I think we are getting there. I'm starting to feel a lot more confident about the work we're doing with it now. So thank you very much for watching. Please, if you've got any comments, stick them below. I shall do my best to respond to every comment we get. If you've got any interesting questions, stick it in there, and I may even do a little piece to camera for you. So once again, thanks very much for watching, and stay safe, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Cheers, bye.